Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lydia Shatkin. I'm an instructional designer with eCampus, and thank you for joining us at an interactive workshop titled Using Transformative Pedagogies in the Online Classroom. So this will be interactive. You'll be here with Kim McAloney and Freddie Leon. Kim is an academic engagement coordinator and academic counselor with the Educational Opportunities Program. And Freddie is an academic advisor with the School of Language, Culture, and Society. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you for responding. I come from a community where it's important to do that. So maybe we can try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Awesome. Thank you. As she said, my name is Kim McAloney. I'm also going to share that I teach for the College Student Services Administration program. I've developed and taught 2 courses in that program multiple times, and I'm developing my 3rd right now. Those courses are the transition class into the program. I teach multicultural issues in higher education, and I'm developing foundations of social justice. I also am a 3rd year and doctoral candidate in the College of Education. And that's important because I'm going to share with you a little story about a learning experience that was really transformative for me. So in our program, we take an ethnography class, and our instructor gave us a lot of leeway with our projects. So we each had to undertake an ethnographic project. And as you know, there's a lot of different ways to do ethnography. I had a conversation with some of my colleagues the fall before about exploring our relationships, our mentorship relationships, and there was something unique about them, and so starting to explore how do we name this experience and what's happening. So our instructor allowed me to explore and do a duo ethnography as part of that project, and really shared with us resources that there's lots of different ways of engaging in field work, in field notes, in reflection, and how you share your data and or field notes and what you're coming out with. So as part of this project, I did some field notes as poetry, which are now being published in the Critical Education Policy Journal. And from this project, I ended up developing a theoretical model of transformational mentorship with women of color. That's the conceptual framework for my dissertation. So this one class and this one project and the faculty member allowing me to have, or allowing us as a class to have a lot of flexibility to engage, to cite where we're coming from and how we're doing what we're doing, right? So we did it well and through techniques that have been published about, right? Things like that. And now is having a huge impact on my PhD, right? So I want to share that with you. Thank you for being here. Excited to learn with you in the next little bit. And I'll let Freddie introduce.
Good morning. So I have a little bit of experience with teaching. Most of my focus has been academic advising, but I've been a TA for a Spanish course, Spanish 316 for heritage speakers. I've also been a TA for ALS 199, Untold Stories, Histories of People of Color in Oregon. And then most recently, I was able to co-teach with Kim McAloney, the CSSA 520 Multicultural Issues in Higher Education. And so for me, a transformative experience has been probably the first 3 classes that I took in graduate school, and those were Programs and Functions, a history course in higher education, and student development theory. The most impactful project for me was the cross-syllabus integration project, because we had to come up with something that involved provided historical context for higher education. We had to come up with a solution for an issue in higher education, and then we also had to incorporate student development theory into that. That was transformative for me because it was an opportunity for us to engage with the campus community and to feel like we were valued, like we were important, like we had good ideas to contribute, and we felt cared for, knowledgeable about what we were talking about. And so I share this because these are the kinds of things that I think students should feel when they're taking courses, and these are the kinds of things that are transformative for students. So the cross-syllabus integration project, we invited campus community members to come and see the provost, the vice provost for student affairs was also invited. We had campus partners from housing and dining services also attend. So it was great because we felt heard and we had great ideas to contribute. Some of them were implemented, but they were like minor changes that had a big impact on students. So that was great. And I share this, like I said, because it was a transformative experience for me. So throughout this presentation, you'll get the opportunity to share your experiences as well. And actually, that's one of the first things we'll do here. So we're gonna have you get into groups of 2, partner 1 or partner A and partner B, and you'll get to share, each one will have a minute to share your experience. We'll tell you when you need to switch. So the prompt that you'll have is this one up here. So like I said, partner A will share a transformative experience or learning experience that they've had, and then we'll switch to partner B, and then at the very end we'll have 2 minutes to reflect on what both of you shared. So go ahead and split up now into partner A and partner B. And partner A, when you're ready, partner A, please raise your hand. Can I have your attention, please? Partner A, could you please raise your hand before we get started? Okay. So go ahead and get started, and then we'll do the switch. I'll announce it for partner B to speak. Okay, so we can go ahead and make the switch. Partner B, go ahead and share your transformative experience. Can I have your attention, please? So now is the time. You'll get 2 minutes to reflect or debrief what you just talked about, what you both shared. Can I get your attention one more time? So now that you've had the opportunity to share about your transformative experiences, we're going to have you talk about what you think of when you think of transformative pedagogies. So go ahead and take another 2 minutes to discuss this among the same group that you're in or the same partner that you're with, and talk about what you think of when you think of transformative pedagogies. Go ahead.
All right, maybe 10 seconds to finish up your thoughts. And let's come back together, please. I'm sure. All right, thank you for engaging in the conversation. As you know and have heard multiple times, this session is workshopy and interactive, and we really appreciate your flow with us in that. So we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about some liberatory pedagogies. So in your packet, if you want to turn to the second page, you can get a little more information. The first piece we're going to talk about is Freire, kind of the grandfather of liberatory pedagogies, and really critiqued education for being, and what he titled and coined the banking model, right? So in this instance, in this room, that we are the teachers, you're the students, so we teach, you're taught. We know everything about this topic. You know nothing. We think and you're thought about. None of that is true, right? Like this is a place where, right, already you've brought your knowledge into the classroom or into this space, into this workshop. You've shared your experiences. You've shared what you already know about transformative pedagogy, right? You have lived experience that you're bringing with you, right? So many of us in the room are already teaching, right? So you have that with you and you're bringing that to the conversation. Again, we know that, Freire talks about education broadly, right, as this way that generally speaking, right, I'm the teacher, I'm going to input my knowledge into you. So if you flip to the next page, engaged pedagogy, Bell Hooks, she talks about a couple things here, that education is the practice of freedom. And so it's through education that we can get to better places, right? And how we live in the world also, right? So part of our job as educators is to educate our students about what it means to be citizens of the world, what it means to be citizens of their community, what it means to be citizens of their classroom, of their program, right? All of those things, that it's in this that is our biggest calling, right? Hooks talks about that part of the faculty role is self-actualization. So moving to this place where I want to continue to be better, right? Better in who I am, a better instructor, moving forward to continue my learning. And as part of that, then creating a community environment in the classroom where we're able to learn from one another. Right, so I have a lot that I can learn from my students, from their lived experiences, from their previous learning, all of those things that they get to bring that into the classroom, building community. And then this additional piece of connecting the community to the classroom, right? So it's not just that we're here in this space, we're going to learn these things and then go off on our merry way, but we're going to learn these things and there's a purpose, and we're going to take that learning and we're going to take it out and do something with it. As you look on, again, that page 3, this means that our classrooms are student-centered, right? Which, again, looks differently in the online classroom. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. This work and pedagogy's ways of thinking fosters student engagement and critical thinking. It has to, right? Because we're asking students to engage with us. We're asking students to engage with the content and how that connects with their previous experiences, how it connects with community, what they're hoping to do in the future, what they can do right now, right? Those things. Also, connecting to social, political, institutional problems, right? Getting again back to this why. Why are we learning this content? How does that connect with me as a student, with what I hope to do now, but also what I hope to do in the future, and encourages dialogue.
So next we're going to talk about Laura Rendon's Senti Pensante pedagogy. So go ahead and flip to the next page and you will see the model for the sensing thinking pedagogy. I think the best way to describe this model is that it's everything. It includes wholeness, it includes intuition, intellectualism, content, contemplation. which is why you'll also see the tree for contemplative practices on the other side. So those are some of the practical things that this model tries to get at. And so the model itself, and I think the pedagogy itself, is rooted in changing the way we think about higher education and some of the practices in higher education. So in the model, there's 7 agreements in higher education that Laura highlights. Those include, for example, the agreement to privilege intellectual and rational knowing. So there's this concept that we tend to privilege this way of knowing. And so Laura sees ways in which we can transform that. So a new agreement would look like working with diverse ways of knowing rather than just privileging one way of knowing. The second agreement is the agreement of separation. So we're pretty much split all the time into different categories: a college, a major, a minor, that sort of thing. So, and also we do that in the classroom as well. We separate ourselves. Individual students sit by themselves and that sort of thing. The new agreement would look like embracing connectedness, collaboration, and transdisciplinarity. So taking classes across different fields, that sort of thing. The third agreement is the agreement of competition. And the new agreement would look like engaging diverse learning styles, both competitive and collaborative, and also individual and community. The fourth agreement, the agreement of perfection. So basically, the new one would look like being open and flexible about being grounded in knowing and not knowing. Both are perfectly acceptable, and I think that's what this tries to get at. The fifth agreement of monoculturalism. What the new agreement would propose would be multiculturalism is respect for diverse cultures. The sixth agreement is to privilege outer work. So to do research, to do things that are going to get people's attention, that sort of thing. What the new agreement would look like would be to balance personal and professional lives with work, rest, and replenishment. So taking care of yourself, taking care of multiple aspects of your body and yourself. And then the seventh agreement would be to avoid self-examination. We tend to do that naturally because that's what we're taught to do, to avoid self-examination. What the new agreement would propose would be to take time for self-reflexivity. And so those are some of the things that this pedagogy incorporates into the classroom. And like I said, your resource packet includes the tree of contemplative practices. So this will show you some of the ways, some of the things that you can do to incorporate this pedagogy into your classroom. So for example, you could incorporate storytelling, which is something we did in the beginning here. You could also incorporate contemplative music if that's part of your curriculum. You could also incorporate meditation. So these are just some ideas for you to reflect on.
So you're probably wondering, what does this look like? So we're going to take a couple minutes to talk through this a little bit. We start, and I'm going to jump around on the slide a little bit. I hope that's okay. I move when I am tied here, so I'm just going to jump around on the screen. So the first piece, we start, and I start my classes with Let's Learn Together. Right, so I believe, again, that all of my students have something to bring to the classroom and can learn from them, no matter the topic. And so really framing this language around Let's Learn Together, that I still have learning to do, positioning myself as a facilitator of the conversation and facilitator of the learning. We also do shared expectations. So as a class, we talk about what do they expect from me as the instructor? What do they expect from their peers as we're going to engage in these next 10 weeks? And what do they expect from themselves? So we do that week 1, and I pull all of those together. And week 2, the very first thing that we do is we have a discussion about that. So people agree, people talk about, okay, maybe needs to be some tweaks here. And so together we're building these expectations that we can continue to hold for the rest of the term, right? So if we're asking ourselves to engage in critical dialogue, right, that then in a peer review project saying, oh, you did a great job, that doesn't meet our agreement and expectation. So being able to pull back to those, no matter if the conversation is maybe more difficult or less difficult, right? Also have a midterm check-in where I shift and change the syllabus based on that feedback. So what's going well, what are we going to continue, where are some places where students might be hung up, or where can some shifts happen, and so doing that real time, right, and making those shifts immediately. I also follow up with an announcement and an email that talks about here's some general pieces that we got from the feedback, and here's some changes that we're going to make because of that. Here's some things that we're going to continue because of that, right? That real-time feedback and community, right? I asked for your opinion, and I'm not just going to tuck that away in a drawer, but I'm going to take that to heart, and let's create this better learning experience for all of us. Also, reflections are very important, I believe, with these pedagogies in our work. And so we have weekly reflections that can be done in a variety of ways. So I have students who do written reflections, students who do video reflections, which can be really interesting because sometimes they're at home, sometimes they're riding their bike on the way to class or on their way to work, sometimes they're at work, and so getting to see a little bit of my students' lives in that way. This also builds community. In some of my classes, those video reflections are shared with the class, and so that's kind of an alternative to an initial discussion board post, to post a video as opposed to written pieces, and that allows us to connect with each other in different ways, right? It's different just seeing someone's name and their thoughts, and seeing someone in their environment, and in video, it feels like you're getting to know them in a different way so those reflections, some flexibility again, right, and some options that students can choose based on their comfortability, based on how they want to engage, and sometimes they shift back and forth too, right, playing with that. And then some bigger projects that we have with the class. So one of my, I don't like when students have to write something for me and it only is for me. I think that there's that we can use our time to engage community. We can use our time and their hard work to make an impact in other ways. And so those projects, two of which are listed here, the storytelling project and a current issues project. So in our multicultural issues in higher education class, we had students do a storytelling project where they started off, talk about how your family's relationship with and in the U.S. So mine talked about my mom's family being from Appalachian area in the U.S. And my father's side coming from Africa and India, and so like that means I have a certain type of experience here in the US, right? So that's a setup for our second piece where we had students talk about their schooling. So think about all of your schooling up until now. So this is a graduate classroom. So students talked about K-12 through undergrad experiences, a little bit also grad experiences, and your academic autobiography. Who did you see in your classrooms? Who was teaching you? Who were the other students in your classroom? What did you learn about other people that are different than you? And so some very interesting pieces that some of our students, particularly students from dominant communities, had maybe never thought about, right? But that impacts us, right? So for us, our master's program is educating student affairs practitioners. So we're going to be working with college students. And so what does it mean to know our own experiences and how that impacts our learning and how it's impacted our colleagues' learning, right? So as they're learning from each other in these experiences and what that means and how we carry forward in our work. The third piece of that was a current issue around the class focused on race, and so a current racial issue and how that student is engaged or experienced with that. So issue or experience. And then the final piece was around what they hope to do, right? Yeah, okay. It was just last term. And so how they're taking the learning from the class in for the future. The presentation of this project, we had students do, mostly people did websites or blogs. Also was open to ebooks or iBooks. And so some way that they can, students in our program have portfolios that they have to present at the end of the term, or excuse me, after the end of their experience in their master's program. And so being able to have that as a part of their piece that they can share with their committee, that they can share with the world. The other piece is the current issues project. And so looking at what's a current issue in higher education, a multicultural issue. And so students went out and researched what's going on, used a theoretical model to develop an action plan, and then offered those references and those suggestions to the community. And the hope is to pull all of those together into a form that we can share with our student affairs colleagues, right? So here's some stuff that's going on, here's a theory, and here's a way that we might be able to approach this issue that's happening. So now we're going to have you connect again with your group, folks around you. It could be two of you, it could be in a little bit larger of a group. And we've talked a little bit about some ideas. We've talked a little bit about the pedagogies. You have this packet in front of you. And so I want you to spend some time generating some ideas. What might this look like in your classroom? What might this look like if you engage? If you already do liberatory and transformative pedagogies in your online classroom, what do you do? What does that look like? And we're going to ask that you generate a list with us. So you have two options for this. One, you can use the back page. So one person can maybe use the back page of the packet, and you can leave that with us at the end, or you can upload it to, on the very front of your packet, there is a link, beav.es/ZTF. That is a link to a Google folder that we have up, and there's a Google form in there. So as you're talking, if one of you has a smartphone or a laptop and you just want to type up your ideas in the space, that would be lovely. This is a folder that we want to collect all of these ideas. We're going to compile them together and then share them with all of you. So we have this generated by all 85 of us in the room, list of ways that we might be able to engage, or folks that are already engaging in these practices, ways that they've done that. So we'll give you a few minutes to talk in your groups, and if you can help us capture this so we can share with the larger group, that'd be lovely. Thank you. We'll give you about 10 minutes.
Can I have your attention, please? Thank you. Thank you so much for engaging in the conversation. We love that. We see you super engaged and sharing the experiences that you're sharing. For the next piece, we were gonna have you share in the packet. There's like a sheet for you talk about transformative pedagogies, but it's more of a personal reflection. For the sake of time, we're going to skip over this, but you can feel free to take that packet with you and use this for yourself to jot down any notes or make a plan for utilizing transformative pedagogy. So we're just gonna skip over this section and then continue on with the rest of the presentation so we can have time for questions.
So really quickly, as a model, because this is pedagogy that we teach with both in the online classroom, but also in person. And so embedded some of the practices in this session. So hopefully you felt that, some reflection that we asked you to engage in, some co-generation of knowledge, right? So I hope that if you didn't get a chance to electronically add your ideas, that you will share that with us. Either go back in later or leave that last page of the packet so we can share that with the rest of the group. And then our own sharing and modeling of stories. So again, we have this. This is the link to the Google folder. There's also a page or a document, excuse me, in the folder that is for questions. So our hope is that you can, I think we have 3 minutes for questions. We had a lot of stuff that we wanted to engage with you around. So we're hoping that you can go in and add your questions to that folder, to that document. And we will go in and write some answers. And then we'll also invite, if you are familiar with transformative pedagogies and use transformative pedagogies, that you would also feel welcome to answer questions as you look through the document. It might be a good idea just to put our names next to our answers and questions so we can continue to engage with each other and give each other credit for this community document. So with our 2 minutes that we have left, questions. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a different way of teaching anyway, and so I think that that once I kind of broke through, I don't have to be taught how I was taught, right? And looking at how using these pedagogies impact every part of the creation, from when I'm putting together the syllabus to, or just thinking about the learning outcomes for the class, right? And so I think by having that, I think it helps me think about, so I think that's the harder piece. So then once there's kind of some structure, right, as I'm building this Foundations of Social Justice class, I'm thinking about what do I want them to produce? And with that production, what do I want them to learn and what do I want them to give to the community? And then how do we use that to engage throughout the term, right? So they're getting constant feedback about their work and their writing and their sources and all of those things. So I think it's more on the front end of like, okay, this is different, right? This was a new pedagogy for me. I hadn't engaged until a little in my undergrad major, but certainly not in any of my other classes. And so once I think I got that, I think it was the other pieces come a little easier. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So do you find
Mm-hmm. I think students have a different response in this kind of classroom in general. So I think, there's a lot of pushback on my first class that I taught online. The students were required to do a video for that first initial discussion. Lots of pushback on that. And then the feedback at the end was, wow, we have so much community in this class. Wow, I learned this technology that I didn't think that I was going to use, but I really enjoyed that. So some of it is helping the students that this is going to be a different space. I think that also means something as a woman of color, and I also have a high voice, right? I don't have my PhD yet. Next year, give me 1 more year. And so that there's some things, right, that like people also question my authority, right, in those ways and doing this. And so I tend to have lots of sources and citations. So as I talk about, this is the pedagogy that we're using, and here's where it comes from, right? So I'm not just, They didn't just hire someone just to, was like, oh, okay, yeah, I think I could facilitate that, right? And so, yeah, I think if they stick with you till the end, I think that there's a lot of positive feedback that they have, and learning and growth and reflection, right? And, I think what we hear a lot from students is, why am I learning this, right? And I think that they come away from this classroom saying, oh, okay, I know, right? So, yeah, thank you. Thank you.